Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions. How many transitions do you have in your life? I like to use the metaphor of a triathlon, something I've been doing for 11 years. And in a triathlon, first you swim, then you get to the transition area, then you bike, then you transition again, and then you run. And that's a metaphor for life, how we change from one thing to another, how do we adjust at different ages. And today we have a most interesting guest. In fact, we're going to have two parts of this show. Well, there'll be the first part and the second part. And today we have Dr. Kirk Whitaker Jones. Dr. Jones first was a lawyer, and then he totally changed his life and became a healer, a chiropractic healer, at a later part in his life. And it is a wonderful story, and we all want to know about that. So, Dr. Kirk Jones, welcome.
Thank you, Becky. Nice to be here. I was a lawyer for 23 years, and during the period of time that I practiced law, I was driving home on my bicycle from a client's appointment, and I was driving down Union Street, and at 26th Avenue, a man made a left-hand turn and ran into me.
And this was in Seattle?
Seattle, Washington, yeah. And so I dove off my bicycle accidentally, without any ability to stop myself, and I smashed his windshield with my head. So I had a fairly serious head injury. I didn't have any consciousness, I was internally unconscious, externally conscious for about a week. I wasn't ever in a coma, but I have no memory of that first week. As a result of the seriousness of the head injury, I took the Myers-Briggs Interest Inventory test, and that is a test that tests what your personality is best suited to do as an occupation or a vocation. And I tested highest for chiropractic. At the time of the accident, I was working as a lawyer, and I wanted to continue that work to see if I could continue being a lawyer, and I was able to do that. However, in the midst of working as a lawyer, I realized, my personality wasn't as well suited to that as it could be to something else, and I thought, well, let's give chiropractic a chance. I was in my mid-40s, and so I thought, let's take a community college course in the evening and see how well I do, whether I can still think and perform. And that was a year-long course in the evenings while I worked as a lawyer in the daytimes, and I did well in the course. I liked the professor, I liked the work, and so the next year I took a course in organic chemistry. That was a lot harder. I wasn't so keen on that as the anatomy and physiology, but I did okay, and so that next summer I took inorganic chemistry and physics. Those are the four science courses that I needed to take as prerequisites before starting chiropractic school. So in the the fall of 1999, I was 48 years old and I started chiropractic school.
So you were 48 years old and you started chiropractic school. Did you ever think, my heavens, it's going to take 4 years and I'm going to be, 52 years old and of the whole new career? Did you think about that?
I did. I thought if there's something that I like to do, it's going to be much easier for me to do it without much effort in a sense. It's not a hard thing to do. I know in law, a lot of times you've got cases where you understand the issues and you can work for the client, but the subject isn't something of personal interest. When you work with something that you have a personal interest in, it's like you're not really going to work in the daytime. It's more of a joyful work, an experience. And it's great to be able to work with people who want to stay healthy or get back to health. And that's what I'm able to do as a chiropractor.
Okay. And then just to kind of fast backward, your background was in Ohio, and you were a sports kid, right? Sports in high school, and you played football, and then you went to Ohio State, and you were a football player for Ohio State. right?
Right. I was a walk-on there, so I didn't have a scholarship, but I played for 2 years there, and at the end of 2 years, I realized how much time football was taking, and I couldn't really use or lose that time from studying, so I decided, look, studying is more important than sports, so I stopped football and used most of my time for studying and did better in courses as a result of that.
And then you got into rugby also.
Yeah, that was something that helped me continue my physical activity, and rugby is a wonderful game. I liked it more than football because it's a continuous game, and you can kind of see the way the angles work in the field. Rather than a right angle, you go at a diagonal, and it's I really actually enjoyed it much more than football.
So what I'm seeing is that in your early college, you were very, very physical, but yet you kind of put that aside and went to be a lawyer, which is more intellectual, correct?
Right.
And then after your bicycle accident in your 40s, you kind of went, wow, well, maybe there's something different, right?
Yes. If my personality would be better suited to do something, then why don't I go on my personality? I look at the body as having, in a general sense, 4 emotions: mad, sad, scared, glad. If you can get rid of the mad, sad, scared, you just have the joy, life is much easier.
So do you feel now that you own Bellevue Chiropractic Center, and you've been here 10 years in Nashville, Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that when you are working with patients that this is like a calling, that this is a joyful experience for you, that it's not the, quote, drudgery of maybe when you were a lawyer and you enjoy being there?
I think you're right. People come into the clinic to remain healthy or to get healthy. And I think you are your best doctor. I think you know more about your body than anybody else, no matter who the doctor is. Now, doctors can be specialists, so they would know a lot more about your eyes than you would know about your eyes. But generally speaking, you know what you feel like when you get up in the morning. You know what you feel like at 10:30, 11 in the morning. You know what you're feeling like in the afternoon. And you can say, you know, my hands are cold. Well, you come to me and I'll tell you, hands and feet can get chillier if your thyroid gland's a little weaker. So chiropractic has to do with adjusting the body, but it also has a lot to do with nutrition, because in order to keep an aligned body, you have to rely on food that will keep you healthy and keep your alignment in straight, I guess.
Right.
Pardon me.
Yeah. So my question, when people say, and I've been seeing a chiropractor probably 15 years, but people who are not in the know, they tend to think a chiropractor is still quackery, and and witch doctor, and how does that doing the spine, what does that have to do with the rest of your body? And what do you say to people like that?
What I tell them is that you have 2 systems in your body. You have your brain and you have your body. The brain is giving information to your body. If some of the nerves that are coming from the brain into the body have some restriction in them, you're not getting as much information to the body. And when you get less information, then that body can't work as well. Somebody who has an upset stomach, they may have, or vice versa, if they have a low back pain, they may have an upset stomach because the nerves in the low back go to the intestinal tract. So there are 4 parts of the spine. You have your cervical spine in your neck, and that gives you nerve information to your face and your head, and then to your shoulders. And there's 3 nerves. The 6th, 7th, and 8th nerves come down your arms and do, we call them dermatomes. The 6th nerve comes down the outside of your arm and gives innervation to your thumb and your index finger. The 7th nerve is in the center and gives innervation to your middle finger. The 8th nerve from the cervical spine comes down the inside of the arm if you're in anatomical position and gives innervation to your little finger and your ring finger. I had one patient who was a ballet dancer, and she had numbness in her middle fingers. I would adjust her 7th cervical nerve and the feeling would come back to both those fingers. Wow. She was in the process of doing porte de bras, where you stretching, you're reaching out and getting a bigger expanse with your arms, and that was having problems with her neck. And when you have we call it in chiropractic, subluxation. It's a part of the nerve has been compromised. You don't have as much energy coming through, so you end up having pins and needles, or numbness, or a sharp shooting pain. Mm. When you have a dull, achy pain, that's more of a muscle pain that is more from the muscle fibers, not necessarily the nerves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that the whole idea, your idea of chiropractic, it's more holistic, and it's listening to the person on their story, their background. And I've talked to a couple of your patients that have complimented you that you actually listen. You listen to their story and feel that they can empower themselves through you. You're kind of the conduit. But I also want to remind our audience that this is part one, and there will be part two, where we're actually going to have Dr. Jones work on patients and actually show us what he is talking about. And there's various really cool machines that he has too, in addition to his healing presence and healing hands. But can you give us a little more idea on the holistic approach to a patient when you talk to them about their lifestyles and everything?
When they first come in, I do a physical exam on them. So I go through the history of what they've been doing, their primary complaint. And you want to look at complaints as primary and secondary. Once you're able to clear up a primary complaint, something else is going to come up as a primary complaint. So you look at someone who's got headaches or a tight neck. You ask them what's their posture during the day. Are they slumped down like this? Do they have a forward head carriage like this? Each time they do that, what they're doing is they're taking their spine out of alignment, out of front to back alignment. Some people may just hold their head like this all the time, or like this, based upon an accident in the past, or just the way that their personal signature on posture. And also when you're standing, see if you stand with pressure on both legs evenly, or whether you put more weight on your left foot than your right foot, or your right foot than your left foot. And if you're that way, then switch it over so that you give both sides a chance to express their muscles, to contract their muscles and be relaxed. Once the person goes through the exam, in the process of going through the exam, I have them I do their blood pressure. And I can do blood pressure in a way where I can measure the systolic and the diastolic lying down and standing. In that process, when a person's lying down, their heart doesn't have to pump as hard to bring the blood back from their feet as it does when you're standing, because when you're standing, the heart has to pump the blood up against the force of gravity. So lying down, your systolic should be 6 to 10 points lower than standing.
And if it's not?
If it's not, then their adrenal glands are not working properly, because as you start to stand up, your adrenal glands will send adrenaline to your heart, and your heart will pump harder to give it the chance to keep the blood flowing in the same rate all the time. Mm-hmm. On the diastolic end of it, it should go up 6 to 10 points if your kidneys are working properly. So doing a blood pressure lying down and standing, I can look at 3 systems in the body, and that gives me a chance to make more recommendations for what a person can do to reach their optimal health. I think that the primary pillar in optimal health is your endocrine system, the system in your body that produces hormones. So adrenaline is a hormone from your adrenal glands. T3, T4 comes from your thyroid gland. You've got the pancreas produces glucagon, and that's a fat-burning hormone. So you've got some hormones that are fat-storing hormones, some hormones are fat-burning hormones. It's important for a person to keep their weight. And I'd like to look at people as asking them, what did you weigh when you graduated from high school?
Wow.
That gives you a chance to see, okay, I weighed 195 when I graduated from high school for myself. And now I'm weighing about 210, 212. I want to get back to 195 because I think that's a balanced state. I don't have more tissue in me. I don't, actually, my BMI is a little better.
BMI means?
Body mass index.
Okay.
And one of the tools I have in my clinic, which we'll look at later, is the body composition analyzer. And you stand on it with bare feet, and it reads through your skin and gives you your BMI, your fat content, your water content, your visceral fat content. Now, visceral fat is fat around organs, and you want that to be lower because you want everything in your body to move around. And when it moves around, then it has a chance to be more relaxed inside you. So it also, what I really enjoy about it is it gives you your metabolic age. So I'd like my metabolic age to be lower than my chronological age.
And your chronological age is?
64.
But your metabolic age is?
49.
Okay, that's a
So
good thing.
I've been successful in kind of keeping my body younger. I also ask people during their first exam how long they're going to live. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, you're the boss of your body. You should know. Didn't you plan on this? And most people haven't. I mean, but when you start to think, okay, I want to live to, I had one fellow, I was looking him straight in the eyes, he didn't blink at all. I said, how long are you going to live? And he said, 118. And that's reasonable. What we're looking at is a body that copies its gene 300 billion times every day. Now, you've got 75 to 100 trillion cells in your body. So after 7 years, your whole body has been replaced by copying, bringing in new genes, getting rid of old gene cells. So I also tell people that to keep your adjustment, you want to eat proper food. Two things that are most important in your life are breathing and drinking water. So I have people start to practice breathing. If you've ever played a sport, you know that you practice many, many, many more times than you play a game. So it's practicing that makes you do it better. So as you breathe in, slowly breathe in, and you should be able to hear yourself, and you use your nose, breathe in.
Should?
You should not be able to hear the air coming in. Yeah, because the slower the air comes in, the longer it stays in your lungs.
Okay.
The deeper you breathe, the bigger your lungs get. The slower you go, the more lung tissues absorb oxygen, and the more lung tissues release carbon dioxide. So you end up being ahead of the game on oxygen that way.
So you're asking people to breathe properly, and then what about the water thing?
Water, as a general rule, you should be drinking half your weight in ounces. So at 110 pounds, I should drink, 210 pounds, I should drink 105 ounces. So
How many glasses does that mean?
Well, in terms of glasses, it's 3 plus 3 and almost 3 1/4 quarts. So I drink a quart of water before my breakfast, I drink a quart of water before my lunch, I drink a quart of water before my dinner.
And you don't do it during your meal because there's something that you believe that you shouldn't have water with a meal?
Right. When you're eating solid food, you're chewing it up. Now, the teeth break it down physically. The enzymes in your saliva break it down molecularly. So as you're chewing, you're secreting saliva. With that saliva, that's the only liquid you really need to get the food from your mouth to your stomach. Now, when it hits your stomach secretes hydrochloric acid. If you were to drink some iced tea after you had a bite of chicken, that iced tea would stop your digestion completely because it makes the stomach too cold. The stomach has to be at 94, 95, 96 degrees.
So you don't recommend having iced tea, iced, because of that?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're drinking iced tea by itself, fine. However, you want to look at, the body has the brain that tells it what to do. The body then says, when you drink some iced tea, the stomach gets into a small state of shock because this is way too cold. It's not used to that. It never goes to the North Pole or the South Pole by itself. It has the body around it to keep it warm. So you want to be able to not change the temperature inside the body too much. So if you were to drink water after you, say, tap water after you had a bite, that would then dilute the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. And the body does two things with food. It digests it or it putrefies it. So if it's digesting, it's breaking down into molecules, and then it enters through the inside skin of the body. It gets absorbed in as a vitamin or a protein or a fat or a sugar. The other part of it is, I lost my train of thought there, but.
So you have the water, then you don't want to have the water diluting the acid in your stomach and all that.
Right. If it dilutes the acid in your stomach, it putrefies.
Right.
So if it's not digesting, it's putrefying, so it's creating gas, and that's where you get burps and farts.
Okay.
And you don't want extra gas in your stomach. You want I look at the body as having two skins. You have an outside skin on your body, so that if you had a cut on the outside skin, you put a Band-Aid on it to prevent germs from getting through that cut. Well, on your inside skin, from the inside of your mouth to the inside of your bottom, that's a whole outside skin from the body, because it protects the body from anything that's coming through the body. If you ate foods that would irritate the inside skin and you got a chafing in there and you ended up getting a little break in the skin, you have what we call a leaky gut syndrome, or the possibility of a leaky gut syndrome, where you have germs coming in the food in your mouth. They go in and they come right in the body. They race into the body, and then they create an infection and an inflammation. And then you don't have as much energy because you're using more energy on your immune system than you are on regular healthy living.
Okay. And then so it's not only the adjustments, but it's also the food that you eat. And what are the other parts? A lifestyle? What do you do? Exercise? Do you advise your patients to get out and move, or what's that like?
Well, if you're at work, say you work at a computer, I encourage you to look at work as being like classes. So you work for 50 minutes and then you take 10 minutes off. And during that 10 minutes, walk around, allow yourself to stretch, give yourself a chance to reach up or reach down, bend your knees. It's really great to do a little squat every so often, because when you're standing, you're straight up and down. If you do a little squat, you're bending your hip, your knee, and your ankle, and that loosens up the low back at the same time. So that allows, also when you're sitting in a chair or looking at a computer all day long, your shoulders may get tight. You may have tension in your neck.
That's what I have.
So rolling your shoulders forward, rolling them back. And I learned that playing rugby, because being in the scrum, I'd have my shoulders against the hips of the two guys in front of me. And so we would always roll our shoulders forward, roll our shoulders back. And in that rolling, it's relaxing the shoulder muscles. It's also relaxing the neck muscles and the upper back muscles. So look at your body as having muscles that need to be stretched. I think stretched more than built up with weights. Stretching is a much better way of doing things. I encourage people to stretch before they get out of bed in the morning. For instance, you've slept for 6, 7, 8 hours. Your body's been in primarily in a supine position or a prone position, more supine or on your side, and you haven't been weight bearing. So before you get out of bed, lie on your back in your bed, and then wiggle your toes. Wiggle your toes, and then rotate your foot on your ankle, one direction, then the other.
Okay.
Rotate your leg on your knee, one direction and the other, like that. Rotate your thigh on your hip, one direction and the other, and you're able to see, do I have any tension in that joint?
This is before you even get out of bed.
Before you get out of bed, before you put weight on your body. You're waking the muscles up. Muscles are in the body to protect the joints around which they're located from separating or dislocating. So, for instance, my shoulder. The humerus bone and the scapula are held together by muscles, tendons, and ligaments. But the muscles allow you to move it further. So if you're going to play tennis, you want to stretch your muscles back as far as you can get them. Now you're teaching the muscles. Your brain already knows a lot of what the muscles don't know, but when you teach your muscles that they can go back this far, then they're not going to tighten up in this range. But it's important to keep them back there longer. So I learned 30 seconds 3 times. So for any stretches you're going to do, you want to do them 30 seconds, and as you're doing it from 10 seconds to 20 seconds, you're stretching a little more, little more, little more, and then relax a little bit, do the other side, relax it, and then do it 2 more times. And that gives your muscles a chance to know how far they can go, so they're not going to tighten up before you get to full range of motion.
And that's you do this before you even get out of bed, and then you get out of bed, and then you're more relaxed. Is that the idea?
Yeah, your body isn't in shock when you stand up and put all your weight on your feet. And I'm not saying you would necessarily be in shock, but it's just allowing your brain, actually your heart and your mind, to come together. The heart is going to work your body. It's going to tell you. The nerves that come from the brain are going to give you ideas of whether you're in pain or not, and that's kind of the body talking to the brain. So all of those inner mechanisms are important to keep under control to stay healthy.
Right. Well, I think it's important to know that our second show will actually show Dr. Jones demonstrating physically what he does to adjust people. And there are really some very interesting machines that kind of help with that, along with his healing hands. Part of what I'd like to bring to the fact is that you totally changed your life, changed from a lawyer to being a chiropractor, and it's obvious you have much passion involved in healing with people and everything. And I just wondered if you could, in a minute, kind of tell anybody out there who's thinking, well, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my early 50s, I can't change my entire career. What would you say to them?
I'd say that's not true. The brains are made to be malleable. The brain can go on a different train of thought. Now you might think, I speak English, can I speak Spanish? Well, it's harder, but yes, you can. It's just a matter of taking time to study and to learn more things. The brain that's why I took a class at night. I wasn't sure that I could.
You eased into it.
Yeah, my first class I took during the evenings for a year, the anatomy and physiology, and I realized I could still go to school, I could learn, and I could increase my thought level. And so I then took another class, and it was harder, but it was more of a challenge. And so I realized, I'm ready to go to school 5 days a week, 6 to 7 hours a day.
Right, and do the thing, do it, and become a chiropractor. And I want to thank you very much, Dr. Kirk Jones, owner of Bellevue Chiropractic Center, and we'll put his website up there too. And I think it's a very inspirational story that the fact that you changed your life, you're healing people. It's very interesting to know there's much more to chiropractic than just snapping bones, as the old stereotype is. And on our second show, we're going to actually see a demonstration of what can happen. So inspirational things, transitions, body, mind, spirit, what an inspiration. Thank you very much, Dr. Jones.
You're welcome.